What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about brakes and comps, specifically those offered by VG6, which is actually owned by Aero Precision. Now, brakes and comps can be absolutely awesome things and help you really get some tight shot groups and maybe shoot a little better at distance, but they can get annoying, specifically if you are that person to the left or right in close proximity when a brake or a comp is going bang. Now, also, depending on what style of shooting you are, if you're doing a lot of prone shooting, dusty, dirty environments like that, brakes and comps can cause a lot of debris to kind of move around you or cause dust clouds in front of you. And those are definitely things to watch out for. Now, comps are one of those things, and brakes as well, that can get extremely expensive. There are brakes and comps out there that approach the 200 and some go over that, depending on the bore and caliber of what you're doing out there. Now, for those of you newcomers out there, hit that subscribe button and turn those bell notification icons on so you get the videos when they come out. If you guys feel that I've earned at any point during this video, give it that big thumbs up. That helps us beat the YouTube algorithm here, because they don't like what we do on 2A channels. So I know that title sounds kind of interesting, the Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, so it's not Russian, it's definitely not a fraternity thing going on here. We're gonna be talking about a couple of those brakes out there that I've had some pretty good experience with at this point, that I'm really a big fan of all of them depending on the purpose. Now, some of you out there may be asking, why would you put a comp or a brake on instead of just whatever muzzle device your setup came with? Well, there's a couple of different reasons for that. Comps and brakes may be needed to really calm down your rifle to get you the ability to shoot maybe a little bit more precise or maybe a little bit faster on those follow-up shots. Now, there is a difference between the two, and a lot of these we're talking about today are really kind of hybrids. And that seems to be where a lot of the best value is, in something that's kind of a mix between a comp, a brake, and a flash hider. Now, for me, I've stuck with a bird cage or whatever came on a lot of my rifles over the years because it just worked. But after you test a few of these things out and you kind of see the benefits of them, especially shooting at speed, VG6, because I'm a cost-saving kind of person and I don't have the money to blast $200 to stick something on the end of my rifle every time I buy a new one. Now, the reason I got a bunch of the VG6 ones because I'm building new setups to use at work, and I just kind of wanted to test a couple of different barrel lengths and a couple of different comps and kind of see what was going to be the best overall mix for me. Because sometimes comps can become mouth breathers, and that's what I call basically the fire-breathing dragons, where no matter if it's daylight or darkness, those things just shoot flame feet out the barrel. Now, that is the case with one of these, specifically the Epsilon, and we'll look at that video a little bit. That thing is definitely a mouth breather. So speaking of that mouth breather, the Epsilon, we're going to take a quick look at this one first, just talk about the specs, and then we're going to look at all of these up close and really compare them to each other. So you can get a really good idea of what it is. So the Epsilon, this one is on a 14.5 pin barrel from Aero Precision. It is really a nice looking and a nice performing brake on there, comp, whatever you want to call it, hybrid. It keeps this thing very, very flat. It's a little bit longer than some of the others. So being that Epsilon is a little bit bigger, it's coming in at 2.5 ounces and it is 2.21 inches long. So it does add a little bit of length, which is why I have it pinned on a 14.5 barrel, because it makes my overall length 16 inches, staying within the legalities of what the federal government did to us with the NFA. We'll make the rules. I'm just a player in the game at this time. So the Epsilon does work quite well. It keeps it very, very flat, as you've seen by some of that footage, but it is a fire-breathing dragon. Even in the daylight, the first couple of rounds I set off with this thing, it literally gave a noticeable flash, a noticeable spark while looking through the optic, and it almost kind of took me back for a second because I was not expecting to get that much muzzle flash out of this one. But it is still a very good muzzle device for what you're paying for it, which on this one is right at about 85 bucks. Let's go ahead and roll right into that next one, and that is going to be the Gamma. Now, they have two versions of this. This is the shorter one, and then they have the longer one, which you can pin and weld to a barrel. Being that this one's on a 16-inch barrel, I didn't have to do that. And this is how this upper came from Aero Precision. Now, the Gamma is a little bit different than the Epsilon. It is a little bit shorter, it's a little bit lighter, and it is a little bit cheaper. Now, that Gamma comes in at 1.75 inches long, 2.1 ounces, and it is 79 bucks. And I've got to say, for $79, it performs quite well. Now, it did not breathe nearly as much fire as the Epsilon did. It shoots extremely flat, and the concussion seemed to be just a little bit less out of the Gamma than the Epsilon for sure, even being behind the gun. So moving to that next one, we'll talk about the Delta here. Now, this is very, very familiar to probably most of you out there because it's extremely familiar to the traditional birdcage, which we will kind of compare these two up close as well, just so you can get an idea. Although it looks like a birdcage, it is a little bit different, both in length and how the venting is done on this. So I want to say this one does a very good job, especially for the price point, especially being kind of just a, an extended birdcage. It doesn't really have all the ports, all the compensation, and all the brake kind of, attributes that the other two do, but it still worked out well for what it is. Now the Delta is 2.21 inches long and is 2.56 ounces, which was kind of a surprise according to the website. And then it came in at about 54 bucks. That's not bad. Still more expensive than the traditional birdcage, but it did quite a bit better. Birdcage still had all those good attributes a birdcage gives you, such as hiding the flash and all that, but it did calm down the actual muzzle rise quite a bit. So at $54, it was not bad. And then I'm sure most of you have seen the traditional birdcage like this. Very, very old design, has been around forever. It works well, but it doesn't give you some of the benefits that a break or a comp would. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna look at these things up close and kind of compare the size and the overall widths and diameters and all that stuff. Go ahead and check out all of these muzzle devices right now. All right, we're gonna go ahead and jump into these muzzle devices, but we're gonna look at the original here. So that birdcage, it's been a while since you have seen one or you don't know what the birdcage is. Let me get my camera to focus in there for you real good. And you can see right here that standard kind of A2 birdcage thing going on right there. It's got 2 ports across the top and then 1 on each side. It does okay. It's not the worst thing, not the best thing out there. It does a decent job. Let's go ahead and start by looking up close here at the Delta, which is going to be the closest one to the original, and you can see very reminiscent of it, much longer than the original birdcage, and then every other port in there is longer. So you've got the longest one across the top, and then a shorter one, and then a longer one, and it comes around much more onto the bottom side than the original, which is going to give you more more area to actually do what it needs to do, which is compensate and disperse that flash signature. It's much more angular. If you kind of get up in there, you can see the cuts in it than the original. And then it's got, nice depth to it right there on the inside. It's quite long, so it is the second longest. I guess the Epsilon and the Delta are about the same length. I think they're almost exactly the same length. They're super close. And it's actually quite heavy for looking at it for what it is. But it does a good job. So let's go ahead and talk about the Epsilon now. And this being the one that I kind of think looks the coolest, not that that really matters, but does a heck of a good job too. It's very sleek, very smooth, follows the lines of the barrel quite well. You can see you've got 2 kind of linear port jobs right there across the top, which is going to help keep that muzzle flip down a little bit. And you've got those 2 massive compensation holes on each side right there, which is going to help reduce that felt recoil, so you're not getting as much pushback and you're not going to get as much muzzle flip up like that. Up in the front, it's almost kind of reminiscent of that Smith Vortex, if you can remember when that came out back in the day. You got kind of that tri-prong look to it right there with the long ports on there, and that's supposed to help with that flash signature. This one is the brightest one. Okay, so this thing is definitely going to put muzzle flash into your eyes. Does a great job compensating and keeping that muzzle flip down, but it is a fire-breathing dragon, as you guys saw from that video. Let's go ahead and talk about this Gamma, because this one here is pretty dang good, and this has turned out to be one of my favorites for sure as far as it goes with muzzle devices. So you can see across the port we got a lot of those linear port lines in there, and that really helps you keep this thing just flat on target. As you're shooting this is the side view here. This thing just does not move up and down very much at all. It's extremely controllable. And that's what these are doing, is exactly what they were meant to do. Again, you got those 2 massive side ports there on there to help reduce that felt recoil. Then you've got some porting down kind of on the side of each side on the bottom. Not directly across the bottom, but on the side to kind of give you that angular out. porting. So this will definitely, if you're firing this from the ground, so will the Epsilon. It's going to give you a signature off the ground. And what I mean by that is, if you're on dirt or anything, it's going to give you a little bit of brownout. It's going to push debris aside. It's going to throw dirt up in the air pretty dang good. But it's a clean looking muzzle device. It's the middle of expensive when it comes to these three, the Epsilon being the most expensive, the Delta being the least, and the Gamma being in the middle. So kind of give you guys an overhead look here. I got to hold these, so bear with me. And I'll give you guys kind of that side by side right there so you can really see the length of them, you know, and there's quite a bit of difference between the Gamma over here on the left and the Delta and the Epsilon, which are the middle on the far right, which are the two longest ones. But like I said, all of them do their job and they do it quite well for what they are designed like. So we're going to go ahead and get back into the chair. We're going to talk about, do I have an absolute favorite, the cost of them, and you know, are they worth your money? So the benefits of these muzzle devices, they're going to flatten it out, they're going to make you faster in those follow-up shots, and it's going to just be overall more controllable, especially when you combine it with like a mid-length gas system. Now, they can be a little bit unbearable for the people to the left and to the right of you, so be cognizant of that when you're out there, especially on like an indoor range. People are going to want to be a little bit more of a distance away from you to the left and to the right because of how this is actually going to work and push that concussion out to the side. So they do a lot of positive things. The couple negatives, you're going to spend more money, and that could be a negative, or if you're building from the ground up, you could have already accounted for that cost. One of the other negatives is, depending on the style and how it's been milled and machined and what they've done with it, like this one, shooting this at night, although I didn't do it for the video because I can't go to a range at night with my camera because I'm not allowed to take it there when I shoot at night. This thing is just overbearingly bright at night, and I did shoot several different types of ammo through this, but especially when you really get cranking on those follow-up shots, it really produces a lot of flash. The Gamma and the Delta were quite a bit better. So if you're in the market for one of these things and you're going to do a lot of night shooting, the Epsilon may not be the one for you. So do those benefits outweigh the costs? In my opinion, yes. Although I do feel it was a little bit more than the Delta. Again, I wish I had that nighttime footage for you guys, but I can't film where I shoot at night. It's just not a possibility. So being that this one is a pretty good price, out of the three, it's the one I would go with at this time. Now, VG6 and Aero Precision does make these in a variety of calibers, whether it's 9mm, 5.56, 308. So if you're into one of those things, you can definitely check them out. They have the ones that you're ready to pin and weld that already have the hole drilled through the muzzle device, although that does add a little bit of length. So in all, definitely like the Gamma. Not sure which size barrel I want it on yet, but it seems to have performed on the 16-inch barrel extremely well. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video and learned something. If you did and you feel I deserved it, hit that like button, turn the bell notifications icon on, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel in any way and help take this to the next level, go ahead and check the subscribe star out. You guys get out there, have some fun. Try one of these out if your buddy has one before you buy it so you can get a little bit of experience with it. And I will see you guys on the next one.